but India didn't do that. There was never an episode of that sort. But there were very few instances of India going to dispute settlement on WTO yet. But even in the small things, it did not threaten on IP front. Now, the new stance of the government of India is a very orthodox IP. You say the stronger the patent protection, the better the inventions are. That's the thing, and it is telling all sorts of. I mean, it is. I don't know. It gives maximum support to private sector to do R&D. The R&D, what can they do? They can say, you put in money in R&D, we will give you fiscal subsidy. Like you don't tax your investment in R&D. Private companies show on the accounts that we have put in so much, don't pay taxes on that. And actually when they're doing the R&D, I'm not paid one, no. But nothing comes out. There's a lot of input, no notionalities, no output. Private sector is not doing enough. That's very true for pharmaceutical and biotechnology. They're not doing enough. Now the new orthodoxy is for privatizing public resources. Like there is a huge public sector in India, manufacturing as well as public R&D. In manufacturing, they sell off the assets, and they have a target each year how to sell off the assets. It's much less scandalous than Russia, but it's almost as scandalous as Russia. That's one part. And the other part is public R&D. Now they are encouraging public R&D employees to patent. And that's very strange. Economics doesn't support it. Even very orthodox neoclassical economics doesn't support that. Neoclassical economics says, very clear. If you read the 1962 article by Arrow, which I regard as a very important milestone in the development of economic theory of patents, says knowledge is a public good. How do you solve the problem? Like, if it is a public good, the private sector does a gymnast. How do you solve the problem? Arrow himself says there are two options. One is public investment in R&D, the other is patent system. Patent system encourages private sector R&D to put in resources for developing technology. It doesn't support, it is not supposed to support public investment in R&D. You see the contradiction here. Now, this new orthodoxy is to privatize public resources like this. They have gone from one extreme to another extreme. That's the problem. Now, what is happening in India, in public debate in India, in public debate all over the country, all over the world, and the public stances of various governments is much more radical than the Indian governments. Indian government is much more conservative now in many areas of economic policy, but certainly in IP. IP, they have gone to the extent of saying it is stealing technology from others. Violating intellectual property is like stealing technology. Stealing, thievery, which is a very crazy thing to say. If you look at the pharmaceutical industry in India, Brazil and South Africa, these are three completely different kinds of, they have different kinds of pharmaceutical industry. Indian pharmaceutical industry is classified by Balance et al. In 1992 as a country with innovative capabilities. Brazil is a country in which they produce both ingredients and final products in pharmaceuticals, what is called basic drugs. And South Africa has capable of producing only formulations, not basic drugs. And they have different pharmaceutical industries, and their IP systems are different. Brazil dramatically introduced product patents for pharmaceuticals right away, like what you said, in 1996. Then India chose this very painful 10-year transition period. South Africa didn't even change its patent law because they were already giving product patents for pharmaceuticals. But India and Brazil have emergency, what I call emergency compulsory licensing provisions, like in the case of epidemics. South Africa doesn't do it through patent law, they do it through their medicine law, and they have a broader view. Public health is an issue, not just emergency, but public health is an issue, which is very, very radical. There are completely different kind of approaches, and there was, I think, a temporary phase in which these three countries came together and helped each other. But I'm not surprised that it as such doesn't have an IP component yet. But I think they should, because these three countries can come together and work very productively on most things. There is clearly no coordination between developing countries on this point. There is a lot of contradiction. There are a lot of, first of all, developed countries look closely what other people are doing as a group. They can influence individual members, threaten, and do all sorts of things. And there are some problems with it. They cannot coherently do this. No, I am not an expert on international negotiations, but I have read at least two things very closely. One is the Paris Convention Revision Conference, and the other one is TRIPS negotiating groups, documents and negotiations themselves. Paris Convention, there used to be three groups. Group of developing countries was recognized as a group. In WTO, there was no group. The group of countries could not come together and discuss. They could submit proposals. You know how negotiations work. Everybody has some submissions, and they were discussed in the meetings. But meetings were actually done by individual countries. So, but in Paris Convention negotiations, Revision Conference, there were groups of developing countries, other countries, and China. China was a separate country. They had it, and the quality of negotiations was much better. But when you are a group, and when you are recognized as a group, you actually start thinking together and maybe discuss it much more deeply and then represent. That's what I was saying. The submissions during that revision conference were excellent. The quality of discussions on the floor, they reproduced every word spoken in those conferences, and the quality of discussions was much higher. What I am saying is, if these people come together and negotiate, then they will get much better deal. And I am telling you, having Soviet Union was very important in influencing larger interests of developing countries. Whatever Soviet Union within itself, we don't know. But in international negotiations, they were always supporting the developing country, radical kind of stance. Once Soviet Union collapsed and WTO, there was no Soviet Union, the kind of unequal relation between developed and developing was much more clear. We could threaten, with Soviet Union around in Paris Convention negotiation, we could threaten India because those people were also there, whatever. But this kind of negotiations are completely different. Collapse of Soviet Union, I think, especially in that era, where everything was changing, there was complete liberalization going on all over the world, and the unequal relation between development and development became much clearer. The negotiations also became much less give and take sort of thing. It's all give and no take at all. These, or whatever reasons, political or whatever reasons, these people cannot come together first of all, and cannot really have a coherent policy in support of their arguments. TRIPS is written in stone. Nothing can change that. For another 100 years, you can't do anything about it. No, they are not doing enough. First of all, change is impossible because there is a strong interest between Europe and North America on this issue. And they have what they wanted, a TRIPS agreement which is very strong, and they will never change it. And the kind of attempts developing countries feebly to now and then will not make any difference to this ecosystem. It is there for almost ever. It's not enough. Criticizing IP, criticizing TRIPS, criticizing epidemics is just not enough. And TRIPS, the WTO is not going to. Yeah, I was talking to somebody and that person was saying, Richard Baldwin. You know Richard Baldwin? Have you heard about trade economics? He was saying that WTO may collapse, which is a good thing, which is not a good thing. But the thing is that what the argument he was making was that WTO is taking something which it should not do, including IP. It should not have an IP at all. It's none of its business. And it's doing so many things which it shouldn't do, and it may actually collapse. And then bilateral and multilateral trade agreements outside WTO, they are also creating lots of problems. So what I am saying is that TRIPS doesn't belong to WTO. And a very strong effort by developing countries may change it, but not maybe it is. No, they should talk to each other much more. Try to develop common negotiating positions on all kinds of issues. Even if you demand a review of IP in TRIPS, in WTO, you have to make a very strong case. They are not going to accept it with minimum kinds of arguments. No, they will put up a fight where you have to show why TRIPS agreement should be reopened. It's not easy. They won't accept it. And these people should talk to each other. Should not be afraid of going against developed country interests. Now is the best time, because for the past years these developed countries are not doing well. Now, I don't know how long it will continue in the future, but now is the best time to come together and discuss.